Okay. So for everybody who is tuning in, I just want to say thank you. And I'm here with someone who's become a really special person in my life. I mean, it's not many people that I get to see at least 3 times a week. It's so great. Anthony Okoye, who is the owner of a fitness company. And you started the fitness company, I think, in London, yeah, originally.
Yeah,
And then
that's
you
right.
moved it
Yes,
to Merida and the Yucatan in Mexico, where you
that's right.
reside. Yeah.
That's
And,
right. That's right.
and I had the great gift of getting to meet Anthony through a friend that ended up in Merida and met you, and you've changed her life, and you've totally changed my life since I've met you. And I just love
Sometimes a little exaggerated, but thank
no,
you.
never. No, you really have. You really have
Yeah,
because what I love, what I want to say, and why I want to highlight talking to you,
yeah,
Anthony, is because I was not someone that ever felt comfortable doing a lot of physical exercise. When I was a kid, I wasn't interested in playing sports. I all I wanted to
okay.
do was stuff that was more about stillness, you know. So I would do
Yeah,
stuff like I'd want to go on walks maybe with the dog, but not even that. It was like I wanted to sit and do art or listen to
yeah,
music, and I was that kind of person. And then I got into yoga really young just because it felt amazing energy wise. Like I was having
yeah,
experiences that were profound. And that's why I dove so deep into that direction. But, you know, as a yoga teacher, I've always still struggled with other forms of exercise because
yeah.
though I find it fun now that I have a 8-year-old boy, and I'm like, oh, this is fun. And I like doing this. Who knew? But it wasn't I was never into personal training. I was never into like, okay, let's raise your heart rate and then let's do these weights and I'm
Yeah.
like, what? So I just have to say Anthony's changed my worldview because I've recognized how important it is, and that there's a place with that kind of exercise that is as meaningful and important as the kind of things I've learned to love about yoga. So that's changed my life. It really has because I realize I kind of can't imagine living without it now. So that really is a big shift for me,
Thank you.
and that's
It's
because of you.
it's
Yeah. So
it's
I
a
want to.
big thing for me. Thank you.
Ah, good, good. So
Thank
I wanted to share with you because you have such a different perspective, and in having to teach me things with weights and how to move my body
you.
in new
That's right.
ways, I've come up against edges of my own growth where things that are not always comfortable and usually not, in fact, brings all kinds of language out of me.
Yeah,
or,
that's
or
right.
yeah, or I tend to want to be late so I don't have to do work as hard.
Didn't work as hard, yeah.
So I just was hoping you could share some things because your background, I know you are an incredible trainer, but I know also you
Thank
came from such a different background. And I know you're from Nigeria. I knew that you lived in London and that you did track and field in the beginning and football. And
you.
then
That's right.
and we do have something in common, though. I think that you having a major injury in your life led to you getting deeper into the vocation that you're in now, that you help other people with. And same for me. I went much deeper with yoga therapy and into Chinese medicine and other forms of healing as a result of big injuries that
Big
just weren't
injuries.
healing. So I hope we can talk from that perspective of both being, so committed to healing modalities in different ways.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
So, so you want to share anything about your perspective? I know it's kind of off the cuff, but anything
Mhm,
you can say about what got you more into sharing the way you're sharing with training and
mhm.
how you do it?
Yeah, it's always we've always, as people, as human, we've always looked at where we're coming from, where we are, and where we're going. So I've always been a very quiet kid growing up, and a type that gets bullied a lot at school. Because I was very skinny, very quiet, not strong enough, not strong to do anything. The only thing I like doing was like you mentioned, I love to run. I love track and field. So I was really into it. Originally, my parents they believed in, son, you really have to study and study. Whereas me personally, I was more into the physical stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
want to exercise. I want to be out there running. I want to play. And when you say football, remember, I think to you is soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to us it's football. So for a while, for a period of time, I was really into it. Then there were a lot of changes in my life. I mean, from being moved from England to Africa, growing up in Africa, different culture, different lives. I was getting into a lot of trouble. But then physically, I wasn't strong enough to, to actually stand up to challenges, to some of the challenges I faced as a young boy growing up. And then got into football as well. Had the injury, like you mentioned, a knee injury, and I was out for a while because constantly I was in pain. Been
Mhm.
to doctors, I couldn't find any solution to that until I kind of met a friend. I know a friend that introduced me into exercise,
Mhm.
a real like weightlifting, bodybuilding, and all that stuff. So I kind of got into it, and I realized the more I worked out, the stronger I get.
Mhm.
And not just that, my confidence improved. In some places, I wouldn't even dare to walk in. I would walk in like, "Hello, I'm here,"
Mhm.
something like that. So that was one of the main reasons that got me into what I do is my background. I know I wasn't strong enough, I wasn't fit enough, and trying to overcome my injuries. So I decided, okay, I'm going to get into this career and I'm going to try to be able to educate people, be able to give people what I didn't have as a child growing up.
Got it. Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
that's right.
So
Yeah.
it's what I'm hearing you say is that you recognize it made you stronger in a variety of ways, and if you could also
Yes.
support other people with
Other
that
people.
ability, that's
Absolutely.
that's valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, few years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, I wasn't a personal trainer. I was
Mhm.
working at I was a housing manager and an estate manager. I
Mhm.
managed government properties and all that stuff. But then I still felt that something was lacking because
Mhm.
I had that hunger in me
Mhm.
to give, to educate people on how to do things to make them feel better about themselves. And that was one of the reasons why about 3 years ago I moved to Merida because some of my goals I couldn't achieve it in the UK financially.
Uh-huh.
Yes,
We've had that conversation too, how
that's right.
the quality of life is so different,
It's so absolutely,
and what you can afford there is, I mean, the home you're building is exquisite, and there's
absolutely.
no way I could do something like that where I live to that degree because at least
Yeah.
yet right now.
Yes. Yes.
Never put those limitations on myself, but I'm just saying it's just such a different way of life. Oh, you've told me beautiful things about living there and what a special
That's
place
right.
it is. I always look at pros and cons. So what is still a challenge for you there, even though you love it there in some
Well,
ways?
well, it is obviously I'm coming from the UK, from London. The lifestyle it's a whole different type of lifestyle culturally, physically, the way people are. It's totally different culture. I mean, I came from a culture where everything is about time. Everything is about, obviously, for you, no, because you're not good with time. But
I
I
live in
came from
universal
a,
time sometimes.
that's right. So the whole culture of time, the whole culture of I have an appointment with you by 2 doesn't really exist here.
Right.
So it's so frustrating because so many times when I moved down here, I've been in a situation where I have an appointment with people, for example, six they don't turn up. I get really upset. Like, dude, we have an appointment. Yeah, we have an appointment. You didn't call me. You didn't text me. Nothing. What's going on? And I call them up and they're like, oh, sorry, we'll come tomorrow. I'm like, so that was a big challenge for me in terms of timing. The way lifestyle moves is much more quicker in the UK, whereas here it's much more. Listen, you need to get your hammock, you need to relax, you need to tranquila, That's how they say you need to relax. So that was a big challenge for me.
Mhm.
Another big challenge was the language.
Mhm.
Obviously, currently I speak 5 different languages, but Spanish wasn't one of them. So it was really difficult for me to walk into a place and I can't understand them and they can't understand me. And I have to constantly use my translator, and sometimes it's not correct. So that's another big challenge. And the another big one was the presence. There is not a huge presence of black community
Mm.
here.
Mhm.
So when I moved down here, uh, I will be walking on the street, people like, and then they start saying things and they look at you and they're looking at me like they don't want to look away. But it's not, they don't look at you in out of malice or in a bad way. They look because it's like, wow, oh my God.
Mhm.
And I've met so many people, they want to touch my hair. What is your hairline?
I
Yes.
maybe it's because you wear Superman t-shirts. What do you think? Like, look at him and his superpowers. What else can he do? He's built. He looks just like the guy in the movies.
maybe,
What's he
maybe I
gonna do
can't tell.
now? Is he gonna
Huh?
fly?
That could be true. So, but being that me, I'm not a timid kind of guy, but I don't like attention.
Yeah, yeah.
So constantly, I've had people come to me and say, "Can we take a picture with you?" People are like, "Don't know."
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So for me, it was a big challenge, but right now, all that I'm kind of used to it, and I'm
Mhm.
kind of settled into the system, how things work.
Mhm.
So but that was partly some of the challenges I had to face. The pros is a lot of the lifestyle I couldn't afford in the UK. I mean, in the UK I live in one room.
You live in where?
I live in one room.
One room. One room.
One
Yeah,
room,
yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Here I bought my own house.
yeah.
So the lifestyle I couldn't afford in the UK, I was able to afford it here.
Got it.
And I'm in my dream job. I'm doing what I love.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's one of the things I would say to you that it's one of the things I love most about
Mhm.
being in Mexico, being able to do what I love and happiness. I mean, I could wake up 6 a.m., work till 9 p.m., and I come back. I don't feel like I just come back from work
Mhm.
because for me it's a lifestyle for me.
Yeah, I get it. I do. I fully understand what you're saying,
Yeah,
and I can relate in my own ways.
yeah.
Um, not in
So
Mexico.
tell me, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
So obviously we working. How and why did you kind of evolve your career into what it is?
But why did I
Why
evolve my career into what
why
it
did
is?
you evolve? Yes, because I used to think, oh, you're a yoga teacher.
Mhm.
But then until I did a bit more of I looked into what you're really about, and it looks immense. How did you do it? Why?
Well, um, yoga was something I never intended to actually do or share as a
Okay.
profession. But then I kept being I was asked to teach and fill in for a couple friends, but one in particular that was a yoga
Okay.
teacher, and he was a yoga teacher to celebrities in
Okay.
Hollywood. And I was living in LA at the time, and I had some adventures taking over his clients because he knew I could handle it because I had
Yeah.
practiced for so long. So that was a trip, and that opened some doors. And I believed I was on the path of being an artist actually. And at the time, I was a professional
Wow.
actress, and I was doing music, and I wanted to pursue my spiritual practices. So I kept
Okay.
yoga as something that I was deepening into over time. But then I realized, oh, I really like sharing this with people, and this feels so good, and I love practicing yoga, so maybe I'll do more and more of it. And I just decided over time that the quality of my life was so
Yeah.
heightened by sharing more and more yoga.
Mama,
But like getting deeper and deeper into something physical like that can also wear
yeah,
you down in certain ways. And so
absolutely.
I actually had a pretty severe injury, car accident that almost killed me. And instead, it took me on a new path, or maybe it did. It killed something, and then it took me on a new path. And then I got really deep into exploring healing practices that were for my own healing, but then it took me into recognition that I want to go deep with people.
Good.
So I trained in integrative body psychotherapy, and I trained in clinical nutrition, and trained in Chinese medicine, acupuncture, and got deeper and deeper into yoga therapy in the ways that it
Yeah,
can be an actual medicine. Because I would say now I'm a yoga therapist rather than a yoga teacher, and
you get to.
it's deep medicine in these traditions that go back at least 5,000 years, and all the things I just mentioned.
Yeah,
Um, and they overlap very beautifully for holistic healing, for whole body, whole being healing.
body. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, but one thing I know you and I have in common is in the importance of breath in what we do, right? And
Yeah,
pacing. There's a sense of pacing and rhythm to what I know that you work on. I mean, one thing I really appreciate is how you are so present with when it comes to pacing and rhythm. And I think that's what keeps me in it when it's so tough and hard.
set
You know,
off. Yeah,
yeah, like I know you're right there with me, and you're helping me count, or you're helping me pace,
that's right.
and then you tell me when to stop, so I just like stay present, and
That's
don't
right.
just leave myself, because
Yes,
that's
sir.
always a little option. So you're really brilliant at that, Anthony, and I guess I just wondered, can you talk more about that, like in your profession
Mm.
versus my profession, which is also really focused on things like that. How do you create diversity in routines, or how do you set things up so that it stays impactful and interesting, so people are engaged?
Yeah, one thing about being a PT, normally people always call me a personal trainer. I I go a little bit deeper than that.
For sure.
And yes, and for me, first thing first, I try to build a common relationship with my clients
Mhm.
because I can't really know you well if I don't have no relationship with you. What I mean by build a common relationship is, for me, it's not just about come in, let's do our session, and then see you later. I go. No,
Mhm.
my phone is always open for communication with my clients. I always like to ask them questions about personal stuff because I like to know. I
Mhm.
study body language. I'm a good reader of body language.
Mhm. I can tell you're
So
really good at that when we work together.
yeah. So and another thing that you tend to look out for is you have to know when, as long as you're monitoring your client, you got your eyes on your client. You have to know when they are struggling. You
Mhm.
have to know. So my way of training my clients, I'm not the type of let's go 20, keep going. No, no, for me, no. That doesn't always work in that way. We don't always achieve because most of the time people will be doing that because you're just yelling and screaming.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
don't actually get the motivation. You have to be able to pay attention to
That sounds
people's body.
traumatic.
Yes, that's right.
I'm
So
laughing, but I'm not really. I mean, it really sounds awful.
yeah, so you have to pay attention to body. You
Yeah.
have to know when people are not breathing
Yeah.
properly. You
Yeah.
have to know when you need to actually ask them to stop, take a breather. You need to know when, okay, now you have to keep going because I don't think that's going to kill you. So it's about studying body language, build a good relationship with your client because you get to understand why you want your client to move their hands like that, but they cannot.
Mhm.
Maybe there's an underlying injury why they are not able to move that. Maybe their posture isn't good enough for them to make that particular move. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to pay attention. You have to, and some of these don't come up during assessments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Partly because sometimes some things people don't like talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start building a relationship, when people get to know you, they get to talk to you about things. Some of them, even half of it, don't even come into assessment.
Well,
So,
it's very intimate, this being.
absolutely,
Yeah, I find my
absolutely,
work's really intimate. I find working with you is a very intimate experience because
absolutely.
if I'm going to keep growing and strengthening, I have to be
Yeah,
willing to stay humble and open to my growing edge. Yeah,
that's right.
and be willing to trust you that you're leading me somewhere
That's
that's
right.
beneficial, and then at the same time, uh, be willing to share when I'm at my edge too far, or
Absolutely.
and speak up, right, and say this is
Absolutely.
too much.
Communication.
Yeah,
Communication. That's right.
right, and
Communication.
learn who you. I mean, I find I'm learning a lot about myself and new ways that I could strengthen way further, or
Yes.
also ways where I've had to draw a boundary for myself, and it was
Yeah.
healthy and good to do that too, not because you pushed me too far, but
Yeah.
because I need to learn how to communicate those
How to
things.
communicate.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very, very important. And another thing I get from that communication is being able to adapt my techniques, being able to
yeah.
adapt how I work with my clients, because you could be like sometimes I might plan a high intensity exercise for
Mhm.
you. But
Mhm.
then you come in, your body language tells me that today is not really a good day. I don't think she feels she's into that high intensity today. So
Mhm.
right there and then, I will have to adapt my exercise, different techniques like zigzag techniques, high
Mhm.
intensity, low intensity,
Mhm.
medium, like that, you'll be able to still get what you need from a client. You'll be able to give them what you want to give them in terms of exercise. Well, you have to be able to read the body language, being able to adapt your techniques, being able to build a common relationship with a client.
Yeah.
That you know them enough to know that when they are struggling,
Mhm.
you need to see it and know when to stop and when to change it. Change it.
Yeah. And catch it before it goes too far, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I find that too.
Actually,
Hmm.
Actually, that brought me next. Have you? Because I've always thought, I think one day I would like you to work with me. Have you worked with weightlifters, bodybuilders? Yeah, honestly,
Yeah. I've worked with some amazing athletes over the years, and
athletes.
um
Okay,
yeah, athletes, and some with injuries, some without, just wanting peak performance sometimes. And I've
okay,
worked with people that are passionate about their golf and want to improve their golf game,
okay,
or tennis players, or even runners, hockey players, basketball players, football players. I actually have. But I haven't really worked with weight trainers. I've worked with people who use weights as part of their career
their
and part of
career.
their
Okay,
training. But I haven't worked with people who are very specifically physical trainers with weights as their
wait.
career. Yeah, it's different. So I'm gonna have to now do that with you, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
um, what I'm just curious, how do you teach breathing techniques with your work? Like, what are some of the things that you use for strategy of getting people to get more engaged with their own breath and their own bodies?
Yeah. So I suppose breathing technique is slightly different from normal yoga techniques in terms of workout exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's about timing.
Mm-hmm.
You have to actually know when. And a lot of people, mostly a lot of people you see at the gym, don't actually know when do I breathe in and when do I breathe out.
Yeah, yeah,
And that actually affects your whole workout.
totally. It even affects whether or not you're engaging certain muscles properly or
Southern
not.
muscle. That's
Yeah.
right. So normally the best way in terms of breathing technique is always been when you're in your lifting phase, you breathe in. When
Mm.
you're bringing the weight down, you breathe out. For example, you're doing push-up. You're pushing down. You're doing bicep curl. Lifting phase is always breathing. When you're bringing it down, you exhale.
I just encountered this, what you
Yeah.
just said. I just encountered a moment like that with a client of mine who I've worked with for, gosh, 20 years. But he does weight training, and then he works
Okay.
with me with yoga, but we hadn't shared yoga in years, and we came back
Yeah.
together. I had him do a push-up, and he was doing the breath exactly as you described it, but
Yeah.
often I've described it the opposite way,
The
right?
opposite way.
For a
Yeah.
push-up, for yeah. And so he was trying it both ways, and there was no
Yeah.
preference, but there was just the habitual awareness that he's been taught
Awareness.
it
Yeah.
such a different way. Yeah.
That's right. And a lot of things as well is to be able to, when you inhale and exhale,
Hmm.
to do with your nose.
Yes. Yes.
Because when you're pushing and the quicker you're using your mouth to exhale,
Mhm.
you're pushing out air quicker. So you're not actually keeping oxygen in as long as you should.
Hmm.
So normally what happens in that process is either number one, you as soon as you stop, you feel lightheaded
Hmm.
or you feel a sharp headed
Hmm.
because you're not really keeping oxygen as long as possible in your body. Your body is not getting the brain is not getting enough oxygen.
Right.
So that constantly happens with a lot of people because sometimes due to the fact that the exercise is so difficult, I need to hurry up and finish it up. I'm just gonna hold my breath.
Hmm.
That it's a no. And I
Yeah.
think
Well,
working with you,
what
yeah,
you're training with people to do too is how to regulate
yeah,
their moments of stress, right?
absolutely. That's right.
Because if they're
That's
doing
right.
that with when the weight gets heavy or it gets
Yeah,
hard, you know they're doing that in life. They're doing that in those moments
absolutely.
of stress in life,
Absolutely.
with or
So
without the heavy weights on them.
do you teach a particular breathing techniques in terms of what you do?
Many,
Many. Okay.
yeah, many. It's some of the basis of my work is working with breath work. Yeah, it's
You need
really.
to you need to list them out for me when you can. Maybe I will incorporate them in the work I do.
Oh, for sure. That'd be great fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I find the more I practice different things in life, all kinds of different things in life, especially the more I've explored different forms of yoga, even, I think the most valuable piece is the relationship to breath. I mean, really, if you think about it, that is the most intimate thing of anything we experience in life, how we relate to air and breath and oxygen
And
and what we call prana or life force.
right.
It's a sacred dance, and you dance it as long as you can and
You
do,
can. That's right. That's
or it
right.
dances you and until it's done with you. So yeah, I think it's really important. There's a saying with and it's an old, I don't even know where it comes from exactly, but there's a lot of teachings in yoga that say that how we breathe is an expression of the quality of our life, and actually there's a lot of uh, emphasis on slowing down the breath
The breath.
and making sure it's steady so that you can have a longer life. Because if we're always going and pushing and
Yeah.
over efforting, it's that is changing our breathing pattern. It's also a real reflection of the amount of stress that we're living with.
Yeah.
Too much stress leads to a shorter life.
Yeah. But that slightly differs in the work we do as well because
I know,
sometimes we need to raise your pulse
right?
for your heart health to improve your heart health.
Heart health, exactly.
Heart
Yeah,
health. So it slightly differs. It's interesting. It's interesting. It's
it's very
interesting
interesting.
to
Oh, go ahead, please.
it's interesting to hear that actually most of the time it's about slowing it down, and
Yeah.
that actually shows the quality of life we're living. It's interesting because in my line of work,
Hmm.
it is good to do that when obviously when a client or when the person I'm training, I feel like they're under duress, they're under stress in terms of their breathing, in terms of the workout is too much for them.
Hmm.
That's the time I say to them, okay, so let's drop the weight, take
Hmm.
the deep breaths. We need to bring your pulse down because you're already like you're about to go onto out of your body.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, well,
but
and I work a lot too with people who have anxiety or who have
yeah,
depression, and working with how we regulate breath is a key component. So
yeah,
I agree that there are times when a bit more rapid breathing or an emphasis on breathing even more on the inhale stronger than an exhale is
so,
actually helpful for regulating and uplifting one's energy. But when we or have too much anxious energy, we do need to emphasize, lengthening the exhales and calming people down. I think part of the purpose of yoga and the emphasis on breathing being slower
yeah,
has, in this country, at least where I am in the
yeah,
US, and what I've experienced, there's been a lot of emphasis on slowing the breath down and slowing the body
right
down.
down.
But that said, some of the most popular forms of yoga are kicking people's ass and getting them to sweat a lot, and also getting them to pump it up.
That's
But
right.
then it always winds down, right? And it always ends up with shavasana, which is final.
Shavasana, that's
Shavasana is, you die ritualistically at the end, which means you go through, like, I mean, in a way, it's a whole yoga class is supposed to be a whole cycle of life, right?
Shavasana club. Huh?
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. And when I teach sequencing to students, I always
Mm.
say, think of it like you're shaping a good story or a good song, right? And a
Yeah,
good song is going to have, it's going to build to a certain point, and there's like,
yeah,
oh, this like really great moment, and then you bring it down and you bring it to the point where eventually it comes to an end, right? So
yeah.
there's this whole arc to it. A good story has a good arc, a good song has a good
Ac-
arc. And
Absolutely.
I would say my experiences with you, when I
Yeah.
learned from you, is you always provide this amazing arc, and
Thank
that's really
you.
important.
It
That's
is.
really
Do
important.
you do you use similar approach to clients that have minimum beliefs or interest in yoga? For
Oh,
example,
oh,
bodybuilders, because most time the people I work with, especially bodybuilders, the people that have a lot of focus in building muscles, weightlifting,
mhm.
do you use the same do you use the same approach as well with those type of people?
Yeah. Same approach. I can't say same anything, because
Yeah.
ultimately, when you're sharing yoga therapy, part of it is to really be present with exactly who's in front of you, and you don't just go into the ideas of, well, they have this condition, so I'm going to treat them this
Yeah.
way. That's, you have framework and ideas around how to
Mm.
work with certain things, and a lot of knowledge, hopefully, around how to work with things. But then there's always that aspect of intuition that you talked about, and tuning in
Yeah.
to exactly who's really in front of you, and
In front of
having
you.
having real relationship with who's there.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's where I think you and I can really meet in the differences of our work. Is I heard you say earlier, and I know this about you, that you're so focused on the quality of the relationship. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and that there, one of the definitions of yoga is union, or yoga is about relationship. And so
Wow.
I would say, even though you don't call yourself this, I would still say you're a yoga teacher in some ways. Because you are so dedicated to the quality of relationship. So it's in there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do use some yoga practices, some yoga approaches as
Oh,
well
I know.
in my stretches as well.
Yeah.
In my stretches, in some of the like rehab exercise.
Hmm.
I do work with clients with slight injury or mobility
Hmm.
or lesser
Yeah.
mobility. I do use more of a yoga type of exercise to help them as well. So I think in a way we are more. Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe I had that yoga in me.
and I've
Maybe.
got and I've got a big weightlifter in me.
Uh,
Can't you?
fingers crossed. Yeah, I still need to get more of it out of you. Still need to get more of it out of
Yeah, it's coming. It's happening. I'm just slow and steady.
you. That's right. That works as well. Absolutely, it works as well.
All right. Well, I want to know how people can find you if they want to find you. I know that you're more private in some ways and you don't always want to be found, but if people want to at least follow you on social media, how can they find you?
Okay, so people can find me on Facebook, on Instagram. We're also on TikTok, on London. Just search for London Health and Fitness.
That's the key.
Uh,
London Health and Fitness, everybody.
you're
Otherwise,
gonna see, yeah, you see him right there.
yep, that's it. Yeah. Thank you, Anthony. I'm just really happy we could share time and talk
Thank
about
you. Thanit. Thank you so much for inviting me. I
it. It's
appreciate
fun.
you. I appreciate
Yeah.
you always.
I
Always.
appreciate your ways too. Always. Lots of love over there in Mexico.
Say again.
Lots of love over to you in Mexico.
Thank you. I'll catch up with you tomorrow. I'll still kick your ass tomorrow. Excuse the language.
Yeah, you're one of the few people that gets to totally kick my ass. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, see you tomorrow.
Absolutely. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
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 Okay, I'm just right there.